This was a massive replacement from Alexander Volkanovski versus Max Holloway. Since that fell out, the UFC was looking at something a little bit bigger to put onto that card. And man, is there going to be bad blood. We have Colby Covington versus Jorge Masvidal headlining UFC 272 on March 5th, a non-title pay-per-view headliner. Very rare we see those these days without Conor being included in them. We do know that Jorge fought Nate Diaz before as a main event to a pay-per-view, and that was super successful. Colby versus Jorge might be one of the biggest cards in recent times as well. And finally we get to see this fight. It's been so long since people wanted to see this, and it's finally happening. This is going to be one of the best fights for the UFC to promote. It's going to be a little bit easier given their backstory, the bad blood between them. These two have a whole chronicle of events that's happened between each other, and I'm actually super excited just to watch the promo videos, the press conferences. The weigh-in's going to be crazy, and not just that, we're going to see the best of the two who are going to be as motivated as possible to beat each other because they do not want to lose to the other. Colby will do whatever he can not to lose to Jorge and vice versa. We don't have to worry about these two guys who've been making a lot of money these days come into the fight unmotivated. They're going to be as motivated as we've ever seen them because of the history that they have with each other. And it reaches out to the fans as well. Team Colby versus Team Jorge. Honestly, the things surrounding the fight, all the outside elements of the fight are going to make it a lot more enjoyable, a lot more anticipated than most of the fights we've seen even in the last year. And we do know both these guys are going to get paid heavily, probably both going to get pay-per-view points from the card, which is excellent for them. Jorge's been getting that, but Colby deserves it as well. Colby's been putting his work in the cage and outside of it. Constantly doing interviews, constantly promoting fights, constantly calling people out. Even after losing to Usman, he's right back to work, trying to get the fans excited about his next fight. But when we talk about the fight itself, when you talk about the skills involved, it is an interesting one. Because we do know striking-wise that Jorge definitely has the more power. He's definitely a guy that Colby doesn't want to sit too far out and be inactive in front of. For someone like Colby Covington, he's going to want to be a lot more active than what Usman did against him in the second fight. He wants to crowd him a lot more, put him under a lot of pressure, and get him on the defensive because as we all know, when Jorge gets on the defense, he likes to stay there. Jorge could be a bit too comfortable being defensive to the point where at times he gets a bit lazy with it. And it's one of the big reasons why he got knocked out by Usman. And this is going to make takedowns a lot easier for Colby Covington. It's going to make the left hand and right hook a lot easier for Colby to land. Now, Colby will sometimes get a little too reckless on his defense. He abandons his defense when he sees an opportunity to get super aggressive. And that got him caught against Usman. Usman dropped him with a left hook, but Jorge can also potentially catch him with a check left hook or backstep right straight. As an orthodox fighter, the backstep right straight is great against a southpaw who's winging overhands and hooks. He's going to be able to catch that target on a straighter and shorter path, as well as it being a natural opening against the opposite stance fighter. And that southpaw, Colby Covington, is going to be running into the punch, magnifying the damage. Jorge doesn't even need to throw it that hard to create some impact. The only trick with the punch is, Colby's naturally going to be moving his head off the center line when he's throwing the left overhand, for an example. So Jorge's really going to have to tighten his angle left with the right straight, throwing his straight across his own body. At the same time, he's going to have to make sure the shoulder is up and might even want to look to duck under the left overhand while he's throwing it. So he's kind of lowering his levels, throwing a shorter right straight, following Colby's head movement. But these days, man, Colby's a lot more calculated. You saw that in the second Usman fight. He's going to the body a lot more with his kicks and his left hook. He puts together the left hand to the body, right uppercut combination very well. I don't think it's going to be as used against Jorge. Potentially, he can fake a takedown, go to that combination as Jorge lowers his levels. But from the punch itself, Jorge's going to look to parry or block it, using more intelligent defense of not ducking down game condition in that way. But generally, I do find it hard for Colby to connect on Jorge cleanly if he's being as technical as possible. The naked body kicks, the naked head kicks, the left straights, the winging left overhands and stuff like that, I find all these shots to be somewhat difficult to land on Jorge, especially in open space like that. The way I can see Colby landing shots on Jorge is he's going to have to get super aggressive. There's going to have to be a lot of pressure, and some of the shots are going to look somewhat sloppy. The sloppier the fight, the better it is for Colby Covington. The cleaner the fight on the feet, the better it's going to be for Jorge. And on the feet, Jorge makes the most mistakes when he's on the defense. They showed against Kamaru Usman. They showed against Michael Chiesa. They showed against Nate Diaz. When Jorge is the aggressor in the fight, he shows to be a lot more effective with his shots. When he's on the defense, there's times where it's almost like he gets lazy. And yes, Colby doesn't have the most power, but he can hurt you with the right shots. He even hurt Kamaru Usman, who he himself has a great chin. But ultimately, that's not the way that Colby is looking to win this. Colby is looking to wrestle. He's felt Jorge in the training room for so many years, and we've seen videos of it. Even though they were a long time ago, Jorge got better, so did Colby Covington. And Colby, as it stands, is one of the best wrestlers in the welterweight division. Him and Usman are the top two, and everybody else is another tier below. Jorge does have decent wrestling, but Usman was able to take him to the ground pretty easily, and Colby wrestles a bit differently. If you look at the two Usman fights with Jorge, what were the majority of his strikes? They were leg kicks. And Usman is not a kind of guy who generally counters leg kicks with his takedowns, counters with blast double legs and stuff like that. He gets most of his takedowns from the clinch, from the cage. And even he was able to take down Jorge off of those leg kicks. Imagine how Colby Covington. If Colby sees a leg kick, it triggers him to shoot in for the takedown. He's a blast double kind of wrestler. So leg kicks and body kicks from Jorge, where he likes to set up most of his strikes off, are probably not going to be as used in this fight. And if they are, there's a higher chance he gets taken to the ground. And from there, even though Jorge is the better Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artist, he definitely is going to be somewhat dangerous off of his back. I think Colby will be able to control him. He's had so many years of practice here with Jorge, and the gist from almost every witness and party involved have said that Colby is just a completely different kind of wrestler from the other fighters in that gym. So at the end of the day, as great as the fight I think will be, it will be somewhat competitive. I think Colby is going to win this to a decision. I think he's going to dominate, especially in the later rounds. I will say the first 3 are going to be somewhat competitive until Colby finds his shots a lot easier and finds controlling Jorge in his guard to be not as threatening as it was in the earlier rounds. And the reason why Colby might be able to control Jorge better than Usman did is because when Colby takes you to the ground, he's not a kind of fighter who goes to ground and pound too much. Usman is a ground and pound guy. Colby's more of a straight wrestler when he's on the ground with you. That means he's looking to always control you, always break your posture, always transition, instead of landing ground and pound shots the way Usman does. Usman's looking to smash your face in. Colby is looking to out-technique you and out-position you. That is a big reason as to why Colby might be able to hold on Jorge better than Usman did. Every time you throw punches while on top, you always create another opening for the opponent to escape. And here's another thing. Jorge does some of his best work in the clinch. A lot of people underestimate Jorge's clinch work. He's excellent in controlling posture. He's excellent and finding openings for his elbows and knees, and it's generally where he hurts a lot of his opponents. A lot of the times he's starting to beat opponents is because of the clinch. That's not really going to work against Colby. If they ever get into the clinch, it's only going to be where Colby is pressing Jorge to the cage, and from there, man, he could just go under for a takedown. So it's not really going to work too much against someone like Colby as it would against someone like Usman or Nate Diaz or Darren Till, whoever it's going to be. Colby's a different kind of wrestler. He's a different kind of fighter. He'll shoot it on the legs, shoot it on the hips. Very different than other fighters, even that Usman does. And there's generally a harder wrestling style for someone like Jorge to constantly defend against. But man, I cannot wait for this fight. I'm so happy they put this together finally. And what do you guys think about this? Do you think this was a good replacement from the Volkanovski and Holloway fight? I personally like this fight better. For one, it's fresh. It's something we haven't seen before. And it's been anticipated for such a long time. And they're also 2 great fighters. Are they as good as Volkanovski and Holloway? I don't think so, but the fight has a lot more fireworks and domination involved than I believe Volkanovski and Holloway have. Volkanovski and Holloway is a lot more technical, that's for sure. But the explosiveness of the fight, inside and outside the cage, Colby and Jorge take that over. So I cannot wait for March 5th. This is going to be an excellent fight. I hope they stack the card. There's so many fights they can put on the card. There's a lot of fights they can co-headline. But one thing we do know for sure is there's probably not going to be a title fight on the card. It wouldn't really make much sense to have a title fight with Colby and Jorge being the headliner, right? They don't want to put a non-title fight ahead of a title fight. So the majority of the other fights are probably just going to be fun fights, maybe contenders fighting each other and all that stuff. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure you give this a thumbs up. If you enjoyed my content, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.